Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. This is Roger Connect, your host, and this is a podcast dedicated to helping accounting professionals have exactly that, the premier accounting firm in their area. It's where we're talking about various things such as marketing, pricing, client onboarding, client relationships, quality accounting services, mental health, and a variety of other topics meant to help you as you're working in and on your business. Whether it be with your own company or with your clients, this is designed to give you the opportunity to hear from the experts what it is you can be doing in your business and actually making a difference. So with that, each and every week, I bring on expert guests to have on the show, and today's going to be no different. I have David Jenyns, and David happens to be a successful systematized expert. And what I mean by that is in 2016, David successfully systematized himself out of his business, one of Australia's most trusted digital agencies, Melbourne CEO. Through this process, he became a systems devotee. He, in fact, founded System Hub and Systemology. Today, his mission is to free all business owners worldwide from the daily operations of running their business. David, welcome to the show.
Hey, Roger. Thank you for the introduction, and it's a pleasure to be here.
This is going to be fun. So, interesting little tidbit of truth and fact. David and I happened to have recorded a previous episode together back in 2020, right at the beginnings, onsets, or perhaps even pre-COVID, when you were preparing to do your book launch. So, this is kind of nice to 2 years later visit again.
Yeah, it feels like a lot has happened since then, not only in the world, but then also just in the world of systemology and systems and processes, which I know we'll be able to dig into quite deeply today.
Most definitely. And I'd like to start with something that is kind of interesting. It's a quote that I use. I'm quoting myself here, but I think it's going to set very well the stage for our conversation. And it's the fact that when working with my clients, I always stress the importance that they need to see their business as a self-sustaining, living, breathing entity that can operate independent of them. And with that, I think it really brings into play this whole idea of processes, systems, basically taking things that we can have as standard operating procedures that are well enough designed that others can follow and do things. And that's your niche. That's what you do, isn't it?
100%. I think it's quite common for people in the financial space, accountants, bookkeepers, to start businesses where they understand how to do the thing. They know how to work on clients' accounts and do the work and run the reports and do the submissions for the tax purposes. And they just learn it inside and out, and they deliver it because they set up the business from day dot. And then what ends up happening is they build this business that is heavily dependent on them because they are the technician. They know how to do things well. They might build a small team around them, but they're still very much involved in a lot of the different processes. And a big part of what we try and do is help them, as you said, step out of that day-to-day operation, build the machine so that it works without them, to see it as a separate organism or being. Like, I think of the business system and the range of subsystems that sit underneath that bigger system, and go to work on that to get it to a point where it doesn't have key person dependency and makes their business strong and valuable and able to thrive through all market conditions. That's a big part of the work we do.
You know, I like how you just ended that, so that it can thrive, that it is able to be valuable. Those are very key words that mean quite a bit as we're talking about these systems. So that's a good way to kind of set the stage for this. So one of the things that I think is very true is a lot of business owners get caught up in this idea, and it's capsulated in this statement of, if you want it done right, you have to do it yourself. And they convince themselves that only they can do whatever needs to be done. And it's oftentimes because they've never taken the time to document and record and systematize what it is that they want done. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, very common, especially the business owner, again, because they've built this business from the ground up. They understand it to such a great detail. And then they start to train their staff. Hey, whenever there's a problem, you come to me and I'll solve that problem, whether it's a client or working on a particular project. They'll train the staff and the prospects and clients to come to them. They're the knight in shining armor who solves the problem, slays the dragon, fixes the problem. But then what that ends up doing is it trains the team and the prospects and clients to come to the business owner whenever they've got a problem, rather than them trying to solve their own problem first or having other team members step in. And it just keeps compounding and reinforcing bad habits, which, from the outside looking in, the habits of taking responsibility and being across everything helped the business owner build the business to the level that they're at right now. And they've had a great amount of success being across everything and making sure that things are delivered to a certain standard. And that's because it happens over a period of time, it gets reinforced. But there has to be a period if you want to be able to step away from the business, if you want to have the business work independent of you or any other key team member, then you need to make sure that we can pass that responsibility and we train the staff up and the clients how to solve some of their own problems. And that's like a big part of it. It's become very obvious as well as we've gone through the last 2 years with COVID. With you don't know when team members are going to need to take time off because they've got COVID or they're unwell or a family member is, or it's been quite revealing for the businesses that are very key person dependent. And this is a little bit of a wake-up call for a lot of business owners to go, oh, wow, if something happens to this person or to me, then if the business grinds to a halt, you're in a very risky situation. And you want to look to de-risk that by introducing systems and making sure that the team know how to continue to function, whether you're there or the key team member is or isn't there.
Well, one of the things that I think is really important here is before you can delegate, you have to go through this process of discovering what the process is. And then from that, you need to develop it in the sense that you've got to create now steps and document it. And once you've got that in place, you can now delegate. And so often, I think sometimes people fail to realize that the reason why some of the people fail when we've delegated things to them is we've just not clearly defined the process, nor set the expectations with, deliverables that we're expecting. And then we're setting them up to fail. So I like this whole discussion about systems because it's enabling them to succeed and us to actually be relieved of all this burden that we're carrying or responsibility, let's say. Here's a question. The business owner oftentimes has a lot on their plate, a lot that they're doing. And what I think is one of the first hiccups that causes them to pause is the belief that they're going to have to create hundreds of systems in order to actually have any sense of success. How do you address that overwhelming sense of there's just so much I need to systemize?
Yeah. There's probably two things that popped up for me right there. You had made sort of the comments before, just around we need to capture these systems, and it can have a little bit of a sense of overwhelm. There can be lots of pieces. The first insight that I like to share is the idea that your business isn't broken. And it's one of the core philosophies of Systemology that you first capture what is currently working and what you're currently doing, not what you would like to be doing. Oftentimes when people create systems and processes, they think about the way that they would like it to be, and they start trying to engineer the system so that it's world class and the best of the best, and we're incorporating the new fancy piece of software that we want to roll out, and let's make this change because that's not quite working the way that we would like. And then they start to go to work on the system, and again this just starts to compound the level of work required to get a win for the business around systems. Sometimes the biggest wins can come from just codifying what is already working. You find out who is the person who is answering the phone when that incoming lead comes in, and what do they say on the phone. They're already doing it pretty well. Might not be world class, but if we could just bring everybody up to that standard, we'd get a tremendous win. Most small businesses, what they actually struggle with is repeatability. And if you can figure out the handful of systems, applying the 80-20, identify 10 to 15 systems that you start on, and you just capture what you're currently doing as best practice, bring everybody up to that standard, you'll get tremendous wins that way. So Then the question, part number 2 is, well, how do we identify those 10 to 15 systems that you should start with? And when we understand that our business is not broken and we're just looking at capturing best practice, we don't need to capture every single variable to start with. Just because we don't systemize something doesn't mean it's going to magically stop happening in your business. So we just capture, we think about, we've got an exercise in the Systemology book called the critical client flow. And you think about the linear journey that the prospect and the client goes through to deliver a core product or service. So the exercise is pretty easy. And towards the end, actually, we'll share a link just to get the little template that we share, or you can do it on an A4 bit of paper. I can describe it here. You just have an A4 bit of paper. In the top left-hand corner, you write, who is your target client, your dream client, the person you would love to have hundreds more clients like them. They pay your advertised prices, refer friends and family. They're a pleasure to deal with. Think of who that person is. Then think about, what is the primary product or service? What is the first thing that you would sell to that person when they come into your world? So in the financial space, who knows? Maybe it's like an audit of their books, or you sit down and you do some sort of financial analysis. Think about what is the first thing that would become the gateway into the rest of your world and your product line. And then we basically map the linear journey that prospect goes through to discover that product all the way through to you selling them, delivering it, and then introducing them to the rest of your product line. So you might say at the top of the page, how do we grab that target client's attention? What are the different methods that you use to get their awareness? When they're ready to go and they stick up their hand and put an inquiry in, what happens? Who answers the call? Who answers the email? Then after that, what does the sales process look like? Do you hop on Zoom? Do you have a discussion? Then what happens? Do you send them a proposal and follow up? And when they're ready to go, do you take some money up front, or is it build at completion? And then you onboard them into your business. Like, what data and access do you need? Maybe you need to get MYOB or QuickBooks logins, and maybe you need to connect with a couple of team members and it gets entered into your project management platform. Then the doing of the work, the delivery of that product or service. What are the different steps of extracting out some reports and preparing the final submission for the client and having that meeting, and then actually delivering it and handing over, and then thinking about where to go next. You can actually map that on an A4 bit of paper and keep it very high level and explain, list out each of those different steps just in 2 or 3 words. That becomes a great starting point for a business owner to think, right, if we're going to systemize anything, let's systemize how the business makes money. Because if you can systemize how the business makes money and remove key person dependency on that particular product, then money can flow into the business without that dependency. And once you've got cash flow coming in, you can actually solve a lot of other problems. So I always find that's a great starting point. And you can go one step further and say, inside the critical client flow, is there any pain points in there? Like, if you were to get 10 times the number of clients that you've got right now, what breaks first? Or what bit do you as the business owner not like or actively avoid, and know that, oh yeah, I don't sell as hard as I could because I know in the back of my head I'm going to have to do the work and we can't keep up. We're already busy as it is and I can't onboard clients. So then that helps you to uncover, well, if we can improve your onboarding systems and processes, or maybe the delivery, then wow, that'd free you up to feel like you can sell more strongly, knowing that, hey, we've got capacity, we can deliver to a great standard. So I know we covered quite a few points there, but the real key being your business is not broken, capture what you're currently doing and identify those mission critical systems first, find out where the pain in those mission critical systems are, and then go to work on that. And that's where you'll get the biggest wins to start.
Well, one of the things that I want to jump in on then is this. You're giving an excellent example of not only just what a system is, but the process of going through and identifying which to create a system for and how. But what I'd like to do is now look at your steps that you've defined to maybe give it a little bit more clarity, because in Systemology, you have 7 steps. So let's go through these one at a time real quickly. The first step is define. I think you did a good job of illustrating that, but define, what does that mean to you?
Define is the first step to basically answer the question of all of the systems inside my business that I could be working on, where should I start? Because there's that misconception, as you touched on earlier, that you're going to need to create hundreds of systems before you see a meaningful impact. But it's just a matter of applying the 80-20. You want to think, what are the 20% of the systems that deliver 80% of the result for the business? Go to work on those. I think part of this misconception has kind of cropped up over the years, because when people think of a systemized business, they think of McDonald's or Amazon or Google, these big, well-established businesses that have developed systems and processes and have got a large amount of resources to throw at them, that they think that's to the standard at which a system needs to be created. But oftentimes, we know the listeners are not building hamburger businesses. They're building financial businesses, financial services businesses. And you're going to be recruiting team members and have team members on staff with a certain level of skill. We're not getting 15-year-old kids off the street to come in and flip hamburgers. You might be getting someone who has the university degree, who knows how to do certain financial functions. So what we're actually looking at doing is filling in the gaps and sharing with them, this is how we do things here. And we only need to identify the core systems. And as I said, just because something isn't documented isn't meaning that it's going to magically stop happening in your business. So it really becomes that first step is identify the first 10 to 15 systems on where you should start.
Perfect. And I would add to that, the 2 things that I think are really helpful when I'm having conversations with my clients is, first, what is the system that they can create that they have most control over? I mean, it's kind of hard to create a system around something that you don't have control over. But the other element is create a system around the things that matter most to you, because at the end of the day, if you're indifferent to what the outcome is because you trust the person doing it, then why are you creating a system? Find something that you're very passionate and particular about, that you want a specific outcome, or if you know a particular process or procedure, if it's followed, would result in a specific outcome. Those are, I think, 2 helpful things to consider what to define as the next system to create. How does that sound?
Yeah. And to build on that, we have another thing that we talk about, which is basically make sure that it's essential, make sure that it's repeatable, and make sure that it's delegatable.
Perfect.
So if it's essential, that means it's critical for the department that you're creating that system in, or critical for the business. It's essential for that. You want to make sure that it's repeatable. There's no point in creating a system or a process for something that isn't going to happen again. Like, we're creating processes for things that are recurring and part of the day-to-day operations of the business. And then also delegatable. Like, it's fantastic if you're able to think about, you've got some strong team members that have been with you for a while, and yourself included on the team. And what we actually would want to do is, if we can delegate down specific essential tasks to less skilled team members or lower cost labor, that then frees up your more senior team members to handle only the things that they can handle. And it really is the game of business through systems and processes, that continual process of passing down responsibility and tasks to more junior and less skilled, lower cost labor to free up that higher skilled labor. So those team members are always working on only the most important tasks that they can have the biggest impact on.
I love that. I do that in my company. I tell my managers what is it that they're doing that they need to systematize that they can delegate to someone else. At the end of the day, it's someone that is obviously being compensated less, and it frees up the management to do something that honestly only they can do, and they oftentimes don't have enough time for. So I like how you described that. That was really good. So the next step in your process is assign. And one of the things that I think is helpful here is the fact that it's the assumption that the business owner, they think they have to create all these systems. But what are you going to say about that?
Mm. That's definitely a misconception because the business owner has this picture in their head of the way that they would like things to be. And they think oftentimes there's a little bit of ego in there that they can do that task the best for all of the reasons we talked about earlier. The fact is your business is already operating to a certain standard. You've got clients, you've got a little bit of momentum here. And as we said earlier, the biggest wins can come from just capturing the way that you're currently doing things and who is doing it on your team the best. There might already be Jenny on the front desk who handles those incoming inquiries. You might already have Joe who runs the sales meeting with the client and he does a great job, or maybe it's someone in the back office who's issuing out the invoice or doing the work. Like there are people on your team that are already doing parts of your business to a great standard. And you might have some key person dependency on them. If someone on your team can't show up for a week because they get COVID, there are certain tasks of theirs that just grind to a halt and don't get done. And what we're looking at doing is capturing and thinking about who already knows how to do these tasks that we identified in step number 1. And let's work with them to capture what they're doing and make it as easy as possible for them. And where possible, remove the business owner, because the business owner can sometimes hold up that process because they'll want to tweak and tinker and make things better, where tremendous wins can just come from first making something repeatable.
Well, the thing I like about this is the fact that it doesn't have to be the business owner that does the system, that creates the process, that defines the procedure. It's the fact that there are people on the team that perhaps are doing it already and doing it well, if not better than the owner. And it's nice to be able to go to them and say, we need to document what's going on here. And it's a good thing for them to do. It allows for later on cross-training and delegation, as you were describing. So this whole step of assign, I like. Let's go to number 3, extract. What does that mean?
Extract is all about making it easy to get the IP out of the heads of your team members, because the business owner is busy, the best team members are busy, the people who have that IP in their head generally are busy, and not everybody connects with this idea of writing systems and processes. So sometimes, like, one of the biggest insights of this stage is understanding that systems creation is a 2-person job. You have the person who has the knowledge, and then you have another person who becomes your documenter. And they work together to record the knowledgeable worker doing the task in the moment as they're doing it. And then that documenter can go away with the recordings, pull out the key steps, and then that becomes version 1 of the system. You really need to work hard at making this process easy, because if there's any form of friction, that'll get in the way of team members, busy team members who are doing just the day-to-day operations, and it won't get done. It'll sit on their to-do list as something that, oh yes, the boss told me to create a system and a process, but I'll get to that after I get to these 10 other more urgent things, because systems are never urgent. They're always very important, but rarely are they urgent, which means they very rarely get looked at. So we need to really focus stage number 3 about making it as easy as possible.
Yep. I love this step. This step is, I think, so critical because time and again, I've experienced in this very step, people assuming that everyone else understands and they don't. And I'll give a great illustration is where someone will say in the process, log in or go here and log in and go to this place. Well, the problem is the person who's reading this, who has no idea of what they're doing, doesn't have in the steps where to log in. They don't have the website address. They don't have the login and password that were provided. The person just said log in. And then the next thing is on the website, the the place that they're being asked to go isn't part of the navigation. So it's not intuitive where in the site I'm going to do this particular process. So you're coming back to the person who's originally giving the instructions, and you're basically pointing out, look, I know this makes sense to you, but when you said go, I didn't know where to go. And when you said log in, I don't have the credentials to log in. When you said go here, I don't even know where here is. And so you start to fill in the gaps with the things that people think are intuitive and they're not.
And that becomes really obvious if you make it a two-person job, because
Yeah.
the documenter is often learning the thing as well. So they can ask the questions, and we love to do a combination of video and also some written notes as well. The first time someone does a task, watching a video of the knowledgeable worker doing the thing is a great first starting point, but you're not going to want to watch the video every single time when you do the task, because you kind of already have a base level of understanding. But if you watch the video the first time, it really helps to set the context. And, if you're looking at a piece of software and when the system was created, the button was here, but now they've changed the interface and the button is somewhere else. If you record the video, it gives the full context and then makes it easier for the person doing the task to figure it out. And then inside the system, like we said, we have some bullet points or some notes that might support that video, so that the next time they do it, they don't have to watch the video. They just follow the bullet points. First time they watch the video, second time they might follow the bullet points.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things that's funny is I have experienced that where a third party, someone you're utilizing that has control over their own platform, you do let's say a Loom video where in Loom you're giving the visual explanation of where to go and what to do. But that third party does a website update and they change the color, they move the button, they change something, and no longer does it match the instructions or the video. It's funny how some of these things can get affected by outside influences. So that's kind of a tangent, I guess. Let's go to number 4. Number 4 is organize. You've got these two individuals working on the project. They're getting the instructions. Let's go to the organize phase.
Organize is just about having all of this data in a central location that your team can access. It's almost like a hive mind, something that the whole team can go to. And we start to train the team when you have a problem or a question or you want to know how to do things, you first go to this knowledge base and you run some searches and you find the system or the process. Now, there's a little bit more to it. I also like to keep things as simple as possible. So maybe this just starts as a Google Drive folder with a collection of Google documents. That's okay. We just want to avoid having, oh yes, some systems are saved on someone's desktop over here. Someone has it in their Dropbox here. Someone has it in a Google Slides over here. And because it's everywhere, it means it's nowhere. And if that team member isn't there, there's not a chance that any other team member is going to be able to find it because there's no central location for storing. So it's a combination of keeping it easy, keeping it central, and thinking about how do we make sure, again, it's about always removing and reducing friction. How can we make sure the point at which the task is assigned, there is a link to the system or the process at that point in time? So if you're using a project management platform and you're assigning out tasks to different team members, when you assign the task in the description, ideally, you should have a link to the system or the process that then explains how that task is done. That's the gold standard and the ideal scenario. Or it just depends on the type of business, but the point at which the task is being assigned is the point at which you really want to have the link to, and here's the document that explains how it's done.
Perfect. I like that. This is something that I'm actually dealing with right now. The fact that we've moved all of our employees off or out of the office into their homes, so many of the things that used to be centralized here at the office no longer are. There are a lot of things that have actually migrated and moved offsite to people's homes. And so we've recognized that we have lost that and are trying to regroup and figure out, okay, where is this information? And where it used to be in a hard copy format, it's migrated. So we're actually in this stage ourselves and dealing with it. So I can relate to this one. Let's go to integrate. Integrate's number 5.
Yeah. This particular stage deals with the myth that your team isn't going to follow process. And this varies from industry to industry. The great thing is inside the finance industry, there are certain ways of doing things. So finance actually connects quite well with systems and processes. The goal here is to really get the buy-in from the staff and thinking about how do we make sure that we position this new initiative as beneficial to the individual? Because sometimes when a business owner introduces, great, we're going to create systems and processes, the team member thinks, why are they doing this? Why are they trying to figure out what I'm trying to do? Are they trying to replace me? Is my job going to get shifted offshore? Am I at risk here? And then they might fight the initiative. Whereas what we want them to see is how the systems and the processes can benefit them. And there's a few different ways. Everybody's a little bit different, but you could introduce it by saying, hey, when you go on holidays and I'm following you up every second day, asking you, where's this client up to? Where's that client up to? And then you come back and you have the next month where you're catching up on your emails because you took 3 days off. You spend a month catching up because you got so behind and everything banks up and it stopped with you. Well, I want to make sure that when you go on holidays, things happen smoothly. Or if your family's unwell or something happens to you, I want to make sure that you can completely disconnect and focus on the family. And then know when you come back, things have still happened and you can hit the ground running. It's about understanding what's important to the individual and to the team, helping them to understand that by getting systems and processes together, it's only going to enhance them. Other team members, you could say, hey, if you want to move up in our organization, just as you said before, Roger, that idea that you do it at yours, where you're constantly looking to delegate down to lower cost and lower skilled team members. Hey, if you want to work up in our organization, what you want to do is find tasks that you're doing and delegate it down. That will then free you up to work on higher, more valuable tasks. And I know it sounds a little counterintuitive, but by passing those tasks down, you're actually making yourself more valuable to the business. So that, again, another way to position it. And with everything that's gone on, like the last 2 years, there's actually never been a better time in history to systemize your business than right now, because the team is familiar with change at home, in the community, in business. Like life is changing. Just like you mentioned, Roger, the team's working from home now. Okay, well, if they're working from home and there's change there, well, that gives the perfect opportunity to go, well, we need to systemize this so that way when you're at home and you're not sitting right next to another staff member who you'd normally ask a question, you've got a shot at answering your own question. You can go to that central knowledge source and run some searches and try and find the process, or the process will be assigned at the point at which you're giving the task. So there's a handful of reasons or ways to think about integrate, but it all just comes down to making sure that the team buys in on the process.
I love this. There are two examples that I have of the very thing that you just described. One is I've got a person who is a little bit more career oriented and they want to climb the proverbial career ladder in the company. But the easiest way to do it, and I've done it myself, is instead of climbing the ladder, why not build the rungs beneath you? And so you figure out what can be done. And then if you can systematize it and hire people to work for you to do the job, you just basically promoted yourself to manager because you figured out how to do something repeatedly that you could train someone else to do that empowered you to then manage that. And I think that's hugely, hugely underutilized within companies, to rather than say to an employee, there's a career path here where you can move up and you're waiting for some manager to retire or leave. Rather, it's you've got something, do it well enough that we want someone else to do it. And you're going to be the one that creates the system. And then you're going to oversee the process and the persons that do it. You just basically put the rung beneath you. And instead of climbing the ladder, you built the ladder. And I love that analogy. The other happens to be, I have coincidentally an employee that was very resistant and actually still is to systematizing their process, documenting it. And your point exactly is spot on. She went on vacation, and guess what? Because it wasn't documented, nobody else could do it. So she's on vacation and she has to take care of it. Well, what's her complaint when she's back from vacation? She couldn't fully check out. She couldn't stop working. Well, I just put it back. Well, that's not my fault. That's your fault, because I've for how long told you need to be able to delegate and document it so that we could help in your absence, and you didn't. Therefore, we couldn't. Therefore, you did. So
Yeah,
I mean, it's very simple.
there's a couple of strategies there that just make it easy to shine a light on what someone's doing. Because this is another reason sometimes people don't document their systems and processes. They create a little black box for themselves where no one really knows what they're doing, and they think that creates job security for them because you can't get rid of me because you don't really know what I'm doing. Now, they might not be doing it consciously, or maybe they are, but systems and processes is about shining a light of transparency and accountability onto what the team is doing. And that's really the type of culture that you want to be fostering in your company.
Well said. Well said. Let's go to number 6, scale. Let's scale this.
So scaling is all about, if you think about in stage number 1, we identified the 10 to 15 systems that we get started on, which was all centered around this idea of what is the core product or service. And that way we can make sure that the business can make money without key person dependency. That, if you will, is probably level number 1. You will, as you start to grow and you get those systems in place, you're going to need other systems to help you scale. You're going to need some systems for recruiting and onboarding staff. You're going to need some financial systems. And you're going to need some management-related systems, and maybe you need some extra sales and marketing systems. So this particular step in the Systemology framework here is about identifying what are the other systems required to have your business function. And we call this reaching minimum viable systems. What are the minimum number of systems required for your business to function? And what are the key things that you want to have a process down around? This is how we do things here. And I touched on a couple of them just there. But having a plan for that, identifying who on your team is going to take responsibility for this. We often talk about the idea of a systems champion, someone's job who it is to really guide a business through the 7 stages of Systemology. And this becomes one of their milestones along that journey.
That is great, because this whole idea of scale is, I think, approaching why we're doing all of this, isn't it?
Yeah, look, a big part of it is to make sure that the business is repeatable, to make sure that the business is valuable. Like when you think about maybe one day when it comes to selling a business, the thing that the acquirer looks for is to know if the key team members leave, if the business owner leaves, does this business continue to function? And that then reduces the risk for them. And if you can reduce the risk for the potential acquirer, then you increase the value of the business. And understanding as you're starting to grow and introducing scale, the big piece here is making your business repeatable, which at its core is about reducing key person dependency. So it's absolutely essential for scale is to make sure that you're not dependent on someone. Oftentimes it starts with being dependent on the business owner, but really we're talking about all key person dependency.
Yeah.
You don't want to depend on anyone. The business should be able to function and have a way of being and doing as a standalone entity. And you mentioned that all the way back at the start of the podcast here. And that's the way that you want to view your system and your business as this machine that can work independently of anyone.
You know, I appreciate you restating that, because really it's not just the peace of mind that's coming to the potential buyer of the business to think that they have a business that is self-sustaining. It's the current owner to realize that they have a business that is independent and self-sustaining, that isn't dependent on a key employee, and what's in their mind. It's documented. It's something that someone else can step in and do. And so I love this stage. So
if I can, I'll
go
just
ahead, please.
add one additional thing on that, because this is something I always think about. Even if you're not planning on selling, every day that passes as you as the business owner, you're effectively buying the business every single day, because you are the owner. So I kind of make my head realize, like, even if you're not selling it externally, you're still the person buying it. So you want to make sure that well, how can you de-risk it for yourself? How can you make this machine work without you? So you kind of are the buyer, if that makes sense.
Well, if anything, it's the buy-in every night or every morning of, do I really want to keep doing this? And
Yes.
that's a buy-in in and of itself. And so that's important. And then if you ever go on vacation or leave, you have to have that buy-in that it's going to be there when you get back.
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
Very good. Okay. So this is bringing us to our seventh step, the optimize.
Yes. So the final step, and this is where Systemology is a little bit different from a lot of the previous process improvement methodologies that came before it. Things like Lean and Six Sigma, they focus on optimizing right up front. And Systemology is not a process improvement methodology. Systemology is a process capture, because you can't really improve what you're not yet clearly defined. So that's why we talk early on in the start about just capturing what's currently being done and making that your minimum baseline. That's your standard, and we bring everybody up to that standard. And it's not until we get to stage number 7 that we might then go back and introduce a dashboard and look at some metrics and start to go to work on specific systems and go, oh, great, there's a problem in the business here. Let's find the system solution, or our existing process is not quite working. Let's re-engineer that process. All of that comes up right at the end of the process. Like I first say, well, we've got to get something down, and then we leave the optimization towards the end. Again, a big challenge here for a lot of business owners is they imagine what they think systems are, and they have this picture in their head of, maybe something like McDonald's, and they've got these big thick binders, and every aspect of their business is documented down to minute detail, so that 15-year-old kid can come in and do it off the street with zero or little training. And they have that picture in their head. And when they go to work on the systems, they try and create that. But what we've got to understand is, 1, McDonald's is in a hamburger business. 2, McDonald's has been doing this for 60 years. And to try and compete at that level would be like going to the Olympics and competing against an elite athlete who's been training all of their lives. And, I'm some couch potato who sits behind a computer screen, and I haven't been training. I haven't got the right habits. I haven't had the right diet, and trying to compete at that level. What you actually want to do is go back in time and think, well, how did McDonald's get started? And what were the first few systems that they got into place, and what did that look like? And even understanding they're in a different industry, don't compare where they are today. All systems start out incredibly raw, just getting something down the first time, making it base level, in continuing to improve it over time. This is about culture change. This is about building a systems-driven culture inside your organization and having 1% improvements over a sustained period of time, and then they all compound on each other. And at some point, 1% improvements only feel small in the moment. But at some point, there is a tipping point where the compound growth, the cumulative effect of all of those little systems, all saving a little bit of time, reducing a little bit of waste, making people a little bit more efficient, delegating down a little bit more, all adds up, where once you reach that tipping point, where we call that's the minimum viable systems we talked about earlier, you look back and you go, wow, we have had tremendous growth from this initiative, and this has been a game changer and a turning point for me. And that's what happens as you go through this process.
David, I love your enthusiasm for this. It is contagious, because systems can be fun. I think sometimes there's a stigma that this stifles creativity, but in reality, I've experienced that it inspires creativity. There's got to be a different, newer way to do this. And if we can take what we have and make it better, if we can improve upon the processes and systems that we have, and especially at some point, look at how we can integrate technology into the different things that we have. It's the old adage of years ago going paperless. There's so much that we can do to streamline the processes, become more efficient, become more productive. And all of a sudden, you've got this well-oiled machine that's no longer dependent upon any key individual that is now able to operate, like I said at the very beginning, in a very a self-autonomous, independent kind of setting. So this is a lot of fun in my mind. So I'm going to change gears on us here. And I want to ask, when we first spoke, you were at the point of doing the book launch.
Yeah.
You've had these years now to work with businesses, take this methodology to them, implement it. What's happened? What have you seen as people have embraced this application in their companies?
We've had some tremendous outcomes with business owners being able to take their first holiday where they haven't been able to for the past 5 years. We've had a dog food company that ended up selling. I had another company that got acquired by an ASX Australian listed company. We've had other ones that have scaled tremendously well and built out the team and heavily had huge wins on the bottom line. So there's been a lot of those sorts of benefits and plenty of stories that we share on the website now. We've had about 50,000 copies of the book sold. We've built out a network of systemologists who help to work with business owners to deploy this inside their business. And I get some really good insights. I think as that comes back and the more clients that we end up working with, one of the big things for the business owner is you want to fall in love with the result of what systems can bring. You don't have to fall in love with the documentation. You don't have to be the person writing the systems and the processes. But if you, as the leader of the business owner, recognize what they bring, that they can reduce errors, scale profits, create more time for you and the rest of your team, and really go to work on that, that's what you need to do. And you have to stick with this over a long period of time. I think that's why I get so passionate. I'm not passionate about the documentation. What I'm passionate about is what it can do for business owners. And I've seen inside businesses that have systems versus those that don't. And it really is a night and day difference. And once you actually see this for yourself, you can't unsee it. Every business that you ever own after you've systemized one business, that will just be the way that you do things. Like you can only build a systemized business that it is so abundantly clear and obvious. And that's what I'm hoping I can try and get across for someone as they listen to this and maybe reignite that fire. Maybe they tried to systemize in the past and it didn't quite work for them. Well, I'm hoping that you'll give it a second shot, that maybe we can challenge some of those misconceptions and maybe false beliefs that you've got around systems and processes and let you know that you're not going to need as many systems as you think. They don't need to be produced to the level that you think. Your team will follow these processes, and this is something that happens over time, and you don't need to systemize like McDonald's, and you can do this, and other business owners have done this. I think if we can get that across to someone and they take the first step, I think they'll look back and go, wow, I can't believe I waited so long to get this done.
Well, as a person who's been working at the same company for more than 20 years, and it's become so much of an innate part of who I am, I have to say systems are the lifesaver of what I do. I eat, sleep, and drink what I do, and I too often think I've said something or done something with someone that's a new employee, and my saving grace is having it documented in a system. I have it recorded, and this is what you do, and this is how it's done. This is what I expect, and I might have said it to two people ago, but in my mind, it seems like I just told you. So I've avoided this whole situation through the systems of just being able to say, well, it's right there. This is how we do it. And whether I told you or didn't, it doesn't matter. It's in the system. So it's really given me a great deal of peace of mind. I do know that you've got these Systemology advocates, these people that have embraced this wholeheartedly. That's amazing that you've really started kind of a swell of experts that have become proponents of this whole process. What's one of the surprises that has amazed you in these last 2 years, having released the book and really taken this to the market as you have? What didn't you expect that you're now seeing happen?
I think the enthusiasm that some people have for systems, what I'm starting to realize is some people feel like they're either a systems person or they're not. And those that are systems people are actually quite fanatical about systems. And if you can attract those types of people into your business, you'll actually find it makes your job easier as a business owner. And if you can attract them in from day one and build this as part of your culture. And as people are onboarded, they're introduced to this way of doing things. Things are significantly easier. And the other areas that we've really been doing quite a lot of work on is starting to look at habit change and what little actions can businesses start to introduce to build up evidence that they are a systems-driven business. And the fact that yes, it's easiest if we can recruit people in that are fanatical about systems, but it is also possible to start to have identity change and change people's view on systems by just introducing easier ways and the benefit to them. I always had it in my head that, if you're not a systems person, maybe you can't come round to the idea of systems. But the more that I've started to see this, it really is just about leading it from the top and guiding through. And most people will actually get on board with this initiative if they understand it's in their best interest.
Yeah. I've been involved with a number of systems that were created, particularly going from like paperless environments to creating CRMs or automated processes. And I have to say, it's very gratifying and satisfying. But for my listeners, the accounting professionals, I think there's a great deal of appeal to systems because, like accounting, there's a lot of absolutes in the sense that you're working with like if-then statements. If this happens, then you do this. If this happens, you do this. If you go here, you go there. It's just, I think, a lot of fun in the sense that there's a formulaic process to it, a systemology, if you will. So here's another question. A lot of people talk about you need to write a book. You need to write a book. Well, you wrote a book.
Yes.
What would you say has been this process? How did that book catapult your taking this whole idea of systemology to market? And how has the book really astounded you in the last 2 years?
I think it helps to clarify thought. And it is almost like the document here of this is how we do things here. So it got me to think about, well, what are all of the steps I went through to systemize the digital agency to be able to remove myself from the day-to-day, plug in a CEO, and then we ultimately ended up selling that business. What did I go through? What was essential? What wasn't? So it was a really great opportunity to clarify my own thought and then really condense that. Once it's been written, as far as credibility, positioning, and part of it comes from actually doing great work and getting really good feedback on it. And I was quite fortunate to have Michael Gerber write the foreword for the book, who authored The E-Myth. And that has been fantastic for us to just open the discussion with someone around what are some of their beliefs with systems and why they should think about systemizing their business and giving them, hey, here's an action plan on how it's being done. So it's been really effective from a marketing perspective, for rallying the team around what we're doing, for introducing partners. Like it's one of those activities. It takes a lot of work, but it impacts so many different areas that it's well worth it. You just kind of have to lean into it and commit to it if that's something you want to do.
I love it. So when you look in the mirror and you look back at what you've been able to accomplish so far with this mission of taking systemology to business and the changes that you shared earlier that businesses have achieved and accomplished implementing this, when you look in the mirror, what do you see? What surprises you about what you see looking back at you?
I think the time at which it feels like the results have come off the back of Systemology. It's funny. I feel like with all of the previous businesses that I've been in, I was just building out the root system for myself. And a lot of the growth was happening under the surface, like been grinding away at retail stores, service-based businesses, importing products. Like over the years, I've been involved in a lot of different businesses. And this business, it's almost like the culmination of all of that thought. And because the root system had been built, the growth over the past 2 years, like the book's only 2 years old, and we've had a tremendous sort of scale up of our team here at head office. We've attracted in a little over 55 systemologists who license out our material. We're building a fantastic following on YouTube and getting tremendous sales for the book. And while that feels like a lot has happened in a short amount of time, when I take in the bigger picture, everything was kind of about building this really solid foundation, bringing all of that learning across, and then applying it to this brand new business. And I think that's been, exciting to see how quickly this has grown. And there's probably a combination of factors. Like, it's not only building those foundations, but it's also understanding the challenges that the business owners have, and really thinking deeply about this problem, of feeling like a lot of business owners around the world struggle with putting systems and processes in place because they don't see themselves as a systems and processes person. Oftentimes they might be a visionary, creative type person. And it's funny, you even see that in the financial services space. There might be someone who have built this business and they've visioned what it would be, and they might not see themselves as a systems person. But just because you might not see yourself as a systems person doesn't mean you can't own a systems-driven business.
Yeah.
And just taking the little habits, building up little pieces of evidence will reinforce your identity that you can be a systems-driven business owner. And it's important, and there's never been a more critical time in the current climate than right now to start this.
Perfect. David, this is amazing. I love it. I appreciate the fact that you've had so many experiences that allowed you to basically get a foundation to build Systemology, and in doing so, give us, I think, a good springboard as to what we can use in our own businesses to create systems and use them to leverage and build our own companies and ultimately have peace of mind. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to come back to you for a closing thought. And in doing this, I also want to invite our listeners, in the episode description, David's been so kind to actually provide for us there where you can get a critical client flow template. And I would encourage you to go to the episode description and take advantage of this free offering, receive a copy of that. And in addition to that, I'm going to be putting some information regarding 2 books that complement very well this idea of Systemology. And it's basically the book In the Black, 9 Principles to Make Your Business Profitable. It's there that we talk about those 9 principles, 2 of which are taking what we have and making it better and improving internal processes. So it really ties very well into this whole idea of Systemology. And the second happens to be a book called Red to Black in 30 Days. It is a small business accountant's guide to quick turnarounds. It's this system you use to work with your clients to ensure that we're addressing the thing that so often exists, which is cash flow management. It's that problem that exists that causes businesses so often to be in the red. And here's your chance to actually apply a system that's proven to actually move them to being in the black. So take advantage of these opportunities to go to the episode descriptions and get those. And with that, one of the things that I want to do as a summary is just point out that what David shared today is, I think, so critical to not only our businesses, but also that of our clients. So often, I think what we do is we have that intellectual property, as he was sharing earlier, that's in our minds, it's in the minds of the key employees within the organization, and it's just putting the company at risk, so that if anything happens to them or to us, the company is now at a deficit as to how to do something that's so critical. And what we want is, like I said at the beginning, to build this self-sustaining, living, breathing entity that's able to work autonomous from the owner and from key individuals, because we've written and documented those processes. And David did a great job of identifying in those steps that we recapped, first of all, how to identify what should first be systematized. I think that is a great place to begin. There's so much that can be done, but what really should be done? And then he shared that process of involving someone else, gathering the information, documenting everything, and through all this, move to the point where ultimately you can have peace of mind as an owner that everything's going on in your business. And if anything were to happen to someone or something, you can pick up the pieces quickly and get things done properly. I think that was great. Second thing was the fact that there is actually a process, a system that we can follow to create these systems. Systemology is a great way to actually now sit back and follow a process to really, at the end of the day, come out with something we can be proud of. And I encourage you to check out what David has produced and written in his book, Systemology. The other thing that I'd like to also summarize is the fact that at the end of the day, It's all about our having peace of mind. We have these thriving businesses. We're doing what we're doing. And at the end of the day, what really matters is, can the business actually operate in our absence or in the absence of everyone else? And if that's true, the valuation of the company changes dramatically, whether it be our own or that of our clients. And so to be proponents and advocates of creating these systems just helps everyone involved and ultimately gives each of us the peace of mind we deserve. So I've really enjoyed today's discussion. I appreciate David coming back and sharing with us some further insights on Systemology and the 7 steps that are used for that. And I'm so proud of the fact that in these last few years, he's taken this to a great level where he has proponents and advocates that are really taking Systemology to businesses worldwide and really changing what's going on in these companies to give people, like he shared, the vacations they haven't had, the opportunity to sell their business and get great multiples. Great stories, good illustrations of what this is and how it matters. So, David, thanks for being here on the show. So, what is that final thought that you'd like to leave with everyone?
The final thought is just really to get started. You can't build a repeatable, successful, profitable, thriving business that can weather any storm, that can scale and potentially have an exit for you or just support you without great systems. And putting it off further down the line, all it's doing is delaying it. And the longer that you leave it, the harder it gets to install into your business, because it's about habit change. It's about having a culture inside your business. The more that people get stuck in their ways and they're used to doing things a certain way and not following process, the harder it then becomes to change. So take advantage of the opportunity that we've been given with COVID. There has never been an easier time to introduce change than right now, and take the bull by the horns, get started. And I know you'll look back and go, that was probably one of the best decisions I ever made.
I love it. I love it. Well, with that being said, I want to obviously thank you, David, for being on the show and encourage you as listeners to definitely subscribe if you haven't already to the podcast. We'd love you to be notified of each and every episode as they become released. We do this each and every week, bring on the experts and have them share with us various insights on things that you should be addressing, considering, and implementing in your business. So definitely subscribe, leave us some reviews, some feedback, and also go back to our past episodes and take advantage of those things that we've already had discussions regarding. The other thing I'd like to do is just point out that if you'd like more information about these principles or would like to apply these in your business, feel free to reach out to us. You can contact us at Universal Accounting Center. We happen to be available online at universalaccountingschool.com, or you can give us a phone call, 801-265-3777. And always remember this, if it's about accounting, it is universal. Take care and have a great day and be safe out there.